Okay, hi everyone. My name is Evelyn GEERTS, and I'm currently a research fellow at the University of Birmingham and a Post-Humanities Hub affiliated researcher. And I'm extremely excited to be part of this conference and, of course, the wonderful panel that Carol Taylor put together. A quick comment warning, this presentation refers to concrete examples of political fascism, the Holocaust, and includes alt-right memes, albeit mostly in censored form. Now, before taking a closer look at the Corpo Anarchy painting by artist Kamran Behrus here, a cartographical sketch of my situated interpretation of critical new materialisms is needed, as these post-structuralist philosophies, which are of course also post-philosophical in nature and in line with post-qualitative thinking, frame this presentation completely. I know that most of you are familiar with new materialist thinking, so I'm not going to delve too deep into it, but we can always come back to the critical digital cartography that I put together here during our panel and the Q&A. For this presentation, I would say it is sufficient to work with the following very broad description of new materialist thinking. New materialisms consist of a methodology and a zeitgeist-adjusted conceptual toolbox, while these philosophies direct their attention to the intricate macro but also micro webs of bio-necropower, aspotistas and potentia, control and surveillance, webs which humans, non-humans, and those deemed less than human are all part of and shaped by. It is all about the embodiment and embedment of material beings, thereby adding a new layer onto previous philosophical currents, such as the discursive one, that almost exclusively focused on language, discursive regimes. Additionally, the ideas of subjectivity and agency are also being rethought in this model, and it is this post-humanist, but also more relational or interactive aspect, if you want to put it in Baradian terms, that is very much focused on in what I call critical new materialist theories that do not just elaborate on the entanglements between the ontological and epistemological, but also immediately bring in ethical political concerns to transform the world from within its material immanent contours. It are these critical new materialist philosophies then strongly infused with feminist and queer and critical race studies that could help with the reinvigoration of contemporary critical theory in pandemic times and also underpin my meme analysis presented today. Now, to very briefly sketch out the new materialist models of analysis that I'm employing here, I've written and am writing about tweaking intersectionality as a theoretical paradigm by infusing it with critical new materialist thought. I can talk about this more during the conference itself, but what I'm basically hoping to do in this particular meme project is I'll use two new materialist models, Deleuze-Guattarian assemblage thinking and also a more feminist science studies rooted interferential perspective to tease out how memes in tandem with macro structures of oppression and privilege operate effectively on a micro level. These models are of interest here as they zoom in on brief encounters and interactions and not just between human subjects. So what I'm basically trying to do is kind of bring together intersectional thinking with more micro-political forms of analysis through assemblage and then interference thinking. Now, come back to the meme side of things, because that's what the topic of this paper is, obviously. What popped up on my screen recently when doing research on COVID and alt-right terrorism, which is what I'm also focusing on, was this particular picture. A meme that comments on the ongoing pandemic and how it has divided the population when it comes to masking up and following COVID-19 safety rules. A meme of which the layers of signification are rather ambiguous. Is this a commentary on people not wearing masks and not adhering to today's new social contract? Or is it the opposite? And does this meme have to be situated within a more alt-right COVID-19 denying circle that labels mask wearers as sheeple and brain-dead followers of so-called new global Nazi regime that is taking all of our freedoms away, which is an incredibly distasteful comparison that is being made over and over again by extreme right and alt-right groups and political movements. Well, I did a quick Google image search and then found this image that underlines the second sheeple critique interpretation. So be this guy and not the Nazi Hitler saluting fascist, the t-shirt states, which itself is based upon yet another meme posted on the Reddit channel History Memes titled Are You, that you can see here. Delving even deeper into the memosphere created around this image and rating through its various rewritings, the original image here is allegedly a picture of August Landmesser, who in 1936, while working as a laborer at a German shipyard, refused to salute the Führer who had unexpectedly come to visit. Landmesser, if it is indeed really him, can be seen as performing an ethical political act of bodily disobedience, a corporal form of refusal born allegedly out of the love he cherished for his Jewish wife. In 1937, then, Landmesser was actually found guilty of dishonoring the race under Nazi racial laws and was sent off to a concentration camp. This brings us back to the painting from the start, Corporal Anarchy, that as mimetic art and images in the whale tend to do, queers past, present, and future times by connecting past forms of fascism to the neo-fascisms that are all around us today. Just look at the MAGA hat-wearing Trump-resembling figure in the middle, or the poignant critique of Iranian theocracy. The herd mentality that these political systems are feeding on, by the way, has been perfectly explained by political thinker Hannah Arendt in The Origins of Totalitarianism, a herd mentality that in various forms throughout the ongoing pandemic, often in tandem with what I would call a neoliberal type of social Darwinism and ethnic cleansing, has constantly reared his head as well. Now, why did I just focus on a painting that is a reworking of an original picture, in and of its own a copy of an original event whose actual meaning we'll never really get, and that furthermore has been turned into various pandemic memes with different meanings, one rather fascist and the other, I guess, quite subversive? Well, I'm doing so to briefly focus on the genealogy of memes in relation to mimesis. Memes, first of all, have an evolutionary biology and psychology-based genealogy, which is quite tricky, right? Richard Dawkins, in A Selfish Gene, used meme as a cultural entity to underline the process of cultural transformation. He derived the word meme from the Greek verb mimestai, or to imitate. Memes for Dawkins are digital, often humor-drenched images, but also cultural praxis, such as specific subculture-born handshakes, clothing fashions, accents, basically any kind of behavior and ideas copied from one person to another via imitation, and they're quite interesting phenomena. Memes are, according to Dawkins, basically the cultural version of genes. And out of all of the variations a happy birthday song might have, some variations get tweaked and circulated eternally, while others eventually die out. The survival of the fittest or funniest memes. Psychologist Susan Blackmore later restated the definition of a meme as whatever kind of information that is being copied from one person to another. Within this particular genealogy, memes actually already have a certain level of agential power, as they are said to replicate themselves via human carriers by virally infecting their hosts, thereby already anticipating on a post-humanist decentering of the human. In addition to memetic theory with an E that focuses on the development of culture through the imitation of things, there's another theoretical framework out there that addresses how imitation is the main transmitter of culture, and that is mimetic theory with an I. The difference between the two is that meme theory sees imitation as something positive, so the best memes survive, whereas in mimetic theory, imitation often also has negative implications. Think of René Girard's mimetic desire theory, in which the imitation of another person's desire leads to competition and conflict. Now, focusing on digital memes such as viral social videos, lolcats, rage comics, and many others against the backdrop of Flemish alt-right culture and terrorism, I'm not going to walk down the path of deterministic evolutionary theories, as that stands in opposition to the non-essentializing tenets of critical new materialist thinking, although the agential power aspect is quite interesting. Looking at critical theories developed on memes, then, it is safe to say that after Dawkins and Blackmore, there are basically two analytical perspectives used. namely the more semiotic Peircean strand that reads memes as cultural objects that are decipherable, and the discursive, more Foucauldian one that sees memes as part of a larger societal system of power. When examined through a critical new materialist perspective or post-philosophical one that wishes to deconstruct the representationalism that goes along with the overprivileging of language, both the semiotic and discursive approach are in the end rather limited. Neither approach would be able to capture the intricate material situated context and implications of the Pepe the Frog memes depicted here, nor the effective, ambiguous micropolitical messages they carry. Memetic theory as a whole, furthermore, is theoretically lacking, as analyses of political resentment require an engagement with negativity, I think. Memes are materializations of negative desires, affects, conscious emotions, and political stances as well. Hence, why we need a more critical new materialist take combined with mimetic theoretical perspectives, such as those of GEERTS, but also Connolly, Latu, and others. Now, this renewed mimetic focus, plus a critical new materialist one that takes the material semiotic together from the get-go, accentuates the agential powers of memes and their potential negative roots and implications. Such a framework really allows us to capture the ambiguity of the two types of Pepe the Frog memes shown here. 3 examples in which Pepe has been turned into the mascot of the alt and extreme right, and Pepe as a symbol of the Hong Kong pro-democracy protests, which is a micropolitical jump that can only be made if we were to simultaneously analyze the discursive, material, and effective rewritten layers of the fascism endorsing meme as an assemblage that is always open to new configurations. Memes as tiny, discursive, material, effective assemblages then. And the ideas of assemblage, micropolitics, and the not yet named notion of microfascisms are all, of course, Guattarian in nature. Deleuze and Guattari actually coined these concepts in 1,000 Plateaus. And with their nomadic philosophy, they've had a noticeable impact on various critical new materialists, such as Braidati, but also Puar, Aaron Manning, and Elizabeth Gross, to name a few folks that are also on my digital critical cartography. An assemblage basically stands for complex, constantly changing constellations of heterogeneous material agencies that come together to create something new. What becomes important in such a model then are the events, relationalities, intensities, contexts, and encounters, or as Puar has also put it, not the entities themselves matter here, but the patterns within which they are arranged with each other. With such a critical new materialist analysis, we transcend the level of the discursive semiotic, and we can, 1, also focus on these memes as potential negative effective roots, which is really important, I think. 2, their agency, but also non-fixity, and so, ever-changing nature, because they get rewritten over and over again. And 3, such an analysis, furthermore, allows us to conceptualize memes as affect-laden micropolitical entities that highlight how all material beings are also controlled and influenced by micropolitical techniques of governance, such as techniques of surveillance, self-disciplining, and hidden norms about gender and sexuality, which becomes extra relevant when we're talking about alt-right memes. Now, for the final 2 minutes or so, I still want to say something about Shield and Friends, as their alt-right memes provide us with the opportunity to develop the perspectives sketched out here today. So Shield and Friends, or Schild en Vrienden in Flemish, or SNV, started out as a xenophobic meme group in Flanders, Belgium, called the Proud Flemish Meme, and became a metapolitical movement, which is an alt-right term for trying to influence the country's ruling cultural ideological framework by metapolitical activities such as memes, but also highly mediatized manifestations. SNV basically wants to infiltrate both the cultural and political domain from the inside out, and racist, sexist, and anti-Semitic and Islamophobic memes are used to influence and wake up the herd, which all sounds very familiar, I think, during these pandemic times. Many of SNV's memes use the imagery of Pepe, but they also often refer to the Holocaust and Belgium's horrible colonial past, which is, of course, glorified by them. One particular meme that went viral on 4chan and that I've added in censored form here expresses SNV's fascist values quite well if we were to examine it via that critical new materialist and actually more holistic framework, which is what I'm going to do now. So expressing the micro-fascist colonial desire and nostalgia noticeable on the song text to the left of the screen here is songs sung during SMVs as frat parties that glorifies the brutal genocidal practices of King Leopold II in back then Congo Free State. The meme that I'm describing here actually contains the picture of, this is the one, a Belgian colonizer being carried around by dehumanized Black men next to a stereotypical cartoon drawing of a Congolese man with chopped off hands, accompanied by the comment, "Do it again, Leo." The meme position on the right top side of the screen here then actually comments on this particular meme, as it was soon banned from Facebook and 4chan and others because it was too brutal. And this particular meme consists of a heavily stylized drawing that says, "Roses are red, violets are blue, the little frog splashes around, Congo is ours." All three artifacts here reinforce one another effectively, if you look at it from a critical new materialist perspective. The seemingly innocent drawing adds extra cruelty to the song and other meme, and vice versa. And they're all operating within an assemblage of memes whose bio-necropolitical blood and soil rooted message requires critical new materialist and mimetic lenses to be able to understand the full impact of the latter. An impact that really goes above and beyond the mere semiotic or discursive, and that, as Del Pilar and Pere in a neo-Derridian way have put it, isn't just haunting, but actually spectro-political, or as I would call it, spectro-micropolitical in nature, meaning that memes should be understood as having a role in the denial of humanness and the being made disposable of certain embodied beings within today's neoliberal extractive capitalist system. To conclude, memes matter, and their portrayal of what does or does not matter matters. And that's it for today, and I'm hoping that we can have a really fruitful discussion during our panel in February. Thank you for listening. Ciao.